You're listening to the Black to Business podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. On this episode of the Black to Business podcast,
you have to take some time to establish connections with the people who you're trying to reach out to. And you have to be able to take the time to give them a reason to care about whatever your account is. And that takes time. And if it's obvious that you're only on social media for business purposes, then it's going to be hard to get people's attention. If you're only, talking about, oh, buy this and we have a new product, people aren't on social media to be sold on something. They're on social media probably to laugh when they're at work and to talk to their friends and to get away from whatever's happening in life. So, remembering that social media is social first. And once you begin to establish connections with people, authentic connections, genuine connections, people can tell if you're real or not.
So let's face it, social media is here and it's really not going anywhere, anytime soon at least. So we might as well use it to our advantage. And when I say advantage, I don't know about you, but I often hear financial gurus ask the question, as much time as you patronize that business, you should buy stock in it. Well, it's fitting for it. As much time as we spend on social media, you might as well make money from it, right? Right. So I'm no expert, but we did what we do best, and that is bring in the expert. Today's show is about social currency and using social media to make money. Joining me on today's Chief Chat is culture curator and content creator, Michell Clark. Michell's story is interesting in that he actually began exploring social media out of necessity when he was stuck on campus as a cadet at the United States Military Academy. He was expelled from the academy in 2012. The days after his expulsion challenged him to choose new life goals for himself. While at Virginia Commonwealth University, Michell began to leverage his social media presence to negotiate more press opportunities for his music discovery platform, Artistic Manifesto. Note that Michell was a writer before he was an influencer. As Michell observed the way social media can be used as leverage for bigger writing opportunities, he continued to dedicate time to growing his social media presence. He went on to sign and get work with Shade Management and officially embraced the concept of being an influencer. He worked on campaigns with Red Bull, TIDAL, and McDonalds. He's been featured on Jet Magazine, Billboard Magazine, and Blavity for his work as an influencer. So today, during this episode, we discuss how do you build your influence through social media and getting clear on your messaging and revenue streams and how not to sound too salesy and offering perspective on your social platforms and most of all, staying up to date on current social trends. So this was a really insightful conversation and I took a lot from this episode, so I'm sure that you will. So let's get into it. So, Michell, thank you so much for joining the Black to Business podcast. I'm so excited to have you on the show and about today's topic. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So I always like to start off with, a little bit about your story, who you are and what it is that you do in your business for those who don't yet know about you. But don't give away too much because we're going to dive into your story a little further as well. So
okay.
Go ahead.
Cool. Well, I'm Michell Clark. I'm a 28-year-old content creator and cultural curator. So I focus a lot on what I can do on social media. I teach people how to build a plan on social media that will help them to achieve whatever their goals might be as a social media coach. And I partner with a bunch of different brands to talk about their products and services on my page as a social media influencer. And I'm also putting out my very first print book in a month or two. So a couple of different hats that I wear.
Love it. Love it. And I'm so excited about chatting with you because I really want to dive into, what you're doing and also the talk about social currency and how to help others use their social media to become an influencer, but also to make money. So,
Right.
so first question is social media. Like, based on your experience, you said you help brands. Why does it matter to you for your business or even your personal brands? And what are some of the things that, businesses and brands should be paying attention to when it comes to their social media presence?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, I'll talk about what it's done for me so far. I was a writer before I was active on social media, and I had a small music website that I would put my thoughts onto. But social media was the only way that I could reach people and get any sort of traffic and begin to establish legitimacy for myself and for my brand. And in this day and age, it connects us in so many different ways. It allows us to, attract like-minded people, to share ideas, to learn different things. There's so many different things you can do through social media. And I think it's less about the platform and more about the people who are actually on the platform. It allows us to connect with a number of different people who might have common interests with us or, care about what we're talking about, who might have never heard our name ever in life, had they not seen what we talk about on social media and things like that. And the second part of your question, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's, what are some of the things that businesses and brands should be paying attention to when it comes to their social media presence?
Absolutely. I think that social media can really be the go-to form of marketing for an entire company or brand, depending on what industry and what field you're in. But when it comes to business, I think just making sure that what you talk about and the energy you bring is indicative of what you do as a company. Do I get the right impression of your company and what you stand for and the service or products you provide based on what I see from your social media accounts? And then also, are you responding to people? If you get called out on social media for, bad service or any kind of less than satisfactory situation, are you responding? Are you being transparent? Are you talking to people one-on-one? Do you have people even monitoring your social media to understand what's happening and what's being said? I think those are some really important things to keep in mind. And you can think about a lot of different things that almost any business can do on social media. So I would just focus on making sure that your social media presence is, one, up to date consistently, and two, just indicative of the experience you want your customers to have.
I definitely have to lead off with that, one of the points that you mentioned. So you definitely mentioned, being responsive. Now I do come across brands and I kind of do respect it when I see, that there's a customer that's upset and they have a comment and that brand, either they respond or sometimes they don't, but then they leave it there. So, should you respond all the time? And what if you erase the comments? What are your thoughts on those?
If you erase a comment, a negative comment that a customer leaves, it doesn't speak too well to your willingness to be held accountable and transparent. And it's probably a bad choice, because if I'm a customer and I'm already upset or I have an issue with the company, and not only do you not respond, but you erase the comment, it just kind of speaks to lack of accountability, lack of concern for your issue. And it's kind of like, well, why should I ever support you? Or, maybe I want to go and, I'll talk bad about you on Twitter if you erase my Facebook comment. If you're going to act like that, I think a much better solution would be to respond in an empathetic way. If there was an issue, to apologize and to focus on solutions. Because it's not reasonable to expect a 100% satisfaction rate. Of course, we all want it, but there will be somebody who gets rubbed the wrong way when dealing with you at some point. So it's better to address it with honesty, with integrity, with openness, and to let people see that you actually care, than to try to hide it and possibly spark, either more upset or irate or negative response, because that'll come back to you at some point.
Good advice. See, that's why I needed you to be here. Because that's good advice. And also, because you mentioned it, I wanted to dive in it a little later. But since you mentioned it, is the consistency and making sure you're having a consistent presence. Now, if you could just talk about how consistent and does that matter across social platforms based on what type of business, but also even the fact that I know I asked like 3 questions in one. Sorry, it's just so much I want to ask.
It's okay.
But also the fact that, dealing with our listeners who may be smaller teams, making sure that they're managing the business, but also the social.
Right. So it's always important, and I always talk my clients through this process. Every business does not need to be on every single social media platform. If you have a small team, it just doesn't make sense. And a lot of times, you don't have to reach individual customers online to establish yourself as a possible, company to be bought from or whatever else. Just depends on the industry and depends on the field. So I always tell people you want to get a feel for what you even have time for. Some people, they're going to go all in. They're going to try to get on every single platform. But what's important to think about is not if you can maintain a platform, but what do you have time to grow? What do you have time to invest enough energy into that you'll be able to be consistent, posting every day, interacting with people, putting out content? What do you have time for? So, if you're a larger company and, you have the resources to be able to bring somebody in to work for your company full time and, run Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Snapchat, whatever else, that's good and well. If those platforms also fit the audience that you want, because some social media networks, they trend towards certain age groups and everything else. So you want to keep that in mind as well. You're not marketing to little kids when you're talking about retirement plans. You probably wouldn't want to talk about retirement plans on Snapchat based on the age group. So keeping that in mind, and then just being really realistic, what's going to be best for what you're selling, and what's going to work for the products you actually have.
I love it. Okay. And speaking of what's going to work, and I guess it's really about the start and where to focus. If you could just speak a little bit about how you even got started, a little more in depth into social media, because I know you have a very interesting personal journey and how you were even able to use it to gain revenue.
Right. So I got into social media when I was a cadet at West Point, the U.S. Military Academy. And I didn't quite feel like I fit in all the way at West Point too often. So I was kind of drawn to social media, starting with Facebook as a way to kind of connect with more like-minded people. And I ended up not finishing at West Point. I actually got expelled. So, I had to go back home. And at that point, I had started my hip hop website. So I was focused on using social media to drive traffic to my blog as a means of, hopefully getting me enough traffic to be able to log on to some sort or to get on board with some sort of media network, like a complex or whatever else. So that was my goal. It ended up not working out. And, I got a regular job, got a day job after I finished up school elsewhere. And I was working for a test prep company, and I was doing, sales and marketing, and it was going pretty well. And I was still blogging on the side and, kind of building up my social media platform, having fun with it, laughing at things and making people laugh and, connecting with like-minded people without much of a plan for making money. Until my boss came to me and told me that she was probably going to recommend me to be let go from the company if I didn't meet a couple of pretty serious sales goals, and it didn't seem realistic to me. Didn't seem feasible, nor did I think that what I had done merited this type of treatment. So that was kind of the point where I was really pushed to start thinking about what I can do entrepreneurially. I knew that I already had a pretty strong following that people kind of asked me, how did you do that? So I decided to, take what I knew, create a curriculum, and start to teach people how to succeed at social media. Around that same time, I found out about a social media influencer agency called Shade, and specifically for Black and brown people like myself. So, content creators with big audiences who are looking to make it into an entrepreneurial endeavor. So I applied to Shade. I ended up getting accepted, and I've been working with them ever since. So that summer of 2016 is really what pushed me into entrepreneurism, and especially using social media to, build my platform and build income streams.
Love it. And you mentioned the fact that you took what you knew from your own growth and you kind of created this mini curriculum. So of course, today is about giving us this crash course. So where do you start in terms of, for those audience out there, I know you spoke on before, in terms of what platform should you start on based on your audience, but also in the midst of that, getting your brand voice and, getting people to understand who you are in the midst of that?
So I think I'll backtrack, and what you want to start with is figuring out why you want to be on social media in the first place and being really clear about that. If you're looking to get on social media for business purposes, then being super clear about what the business will be, what the different revenue streams attached to that business will be, and who your target audience is, like which people are going to benefit from what the business you're going to create. Secondly, I would start to think about the value that you intend to provide through your social media platforms, because they're different things. If you're selling, say you're selling, I don't know, fitness products, you're not going to attract people to follow you on social media just by saying, hey, we sell fitness products. You might bring them in with entertainment value. Maybe you have some funny tweets. Maybe you offer, some fitness advice, maybe some very targeted, help with like diet plans and, workout routines. So you might be able to attract people who already would want to buy your products because you're providing valuable information for your target audience, so you want to kind of really figure out, what you want to do, who you want to help, and how your products will help them. So you can kind of start to create content based on that. And then from there, you can start to look into, explore the different platforms, figure out what makes each different platform tick. Instagram's about strong images. Twitter is about very short, concise, witty, 280 character tweets. They're two very different things. So you might see people with very different skill sets excelling on different platforms. So just starting to observe and learn the game and see, what platform is truly better for you, for your interests, and, for what you want to do.
Yeah, I think that's important and that's key. So also, the fact that you mentioned kind of like that, what can people relate to, but also when it comes to building the brand and the trust factor, like how can people build this presence that others like truly believe in?
Well, I think you have to not be so focused on business at first. I think you have to remember, yeah. Like social media is social. It's social media. It's not business or anything else oriented. There are plenty of people who, focus on business on social media, but whichever way you go, whether you have a personal account that you kind of run your business through, or maybe you have a business account, you have to take some time to establish connections with the people who you're trying to reach out to. And you have to be able to take the time to give them a reason to care about whatever your account is. And that takes time. And if it's obvious that you're only on social media for business purposes, then it's going to be hard to get people's attention. If you're only, talking about, oh, buy this and we have a new product, people aren't on social media to be sold on something. They're on social media probably to laugh when they're at work and to talk to their friends and to get away from whatever's happening in life. So, remembering that social media is social first. And once you begin to establish connections with people, authentic connections, genuine connections, people can tell if you're real or not. People can figure that out after a while. So, being real about that. And, once you start to establish those connections, then you can talk about, hey, you might actually appreciate this. You might like this. This product or service might help you.
I like that. That's a good point. Social first.
Absolutely.
And in the midst of that, do you feel like the numbers matter?
They do, but they don't. Numbers do matter, but they're far from the only factor. I see plenty of people. This is not meant to be shady, but there's a lot of people who have big followings, don't know what to do with it. There's a lot of people who have 500, 1,000 followers who get their clients, they help their people and they're cool with the niche audience that they have. So, no, I don't think that numbers definitely matter. They're not the only factor that determines, how your business will do. And I definitely recommend when you're starting out and when you want to start to build a social media presence, the numbers will come once you start to just focus on enjoying yourself, finding the people you connect with genuinely, and, figuring out the value that you want to provide and how you're going to do that in a convenient way for people. So, I don't like to focus on numbers as being the most important thing, because when that happens, you start to lose track of what you're there for, and you start to do anything to, get more popularity or clout or whatever the word is for it today, which is a good way to lose touch with people and kind of forget what you were there for in the first place.
This is true. And speaking of, just touching a little bit on that factor is the fact of, I feel like there's also this thing around creating this page that looks a certain way. And especially when you talking about, the reason why you were there, like what role does that play to you in, making sure it has this certain colors, a certain layout or things like that?
I try to make my page look pretty appealing. I think that like the Instagram grid aesthetic is like a big thing for a lot of people, and it makes sense. You want to look clean. You want to look professional. You want good pictures. You want a polished appearance. You don't want to look like everyone else who's trying to do the same thing. And I think that's kind of a pitfall of just what I've observed is that I think a lot of people are trying to appear to be the same person. And it starts to kind of all, meld into one. Like people are all trying to fill a very similar lane. And it's hard to stand out when we're all trying to, go to the same locations and shoot with the same brands and carry the same aesthetic. So, appearance is definitely important, but, also give yourself space to be original, to be casual, to, be informal and to do, what you think is best. Because, providing value is going to overrule, filling the lane or looking professional or looking, high quality.
Yes. So mentioning that, in your experience, who are some of the people that you've recognized as, doing it right? And then also working with your clients, like what are some of the transformation stories that you've had?
So, there's a lot of people who are doing it right. Are you looking for a specific, type of individual or just anybody who's kind of doing it right?
Yeah, like even it's all about preference. So personal preference, like you're the guy who come to for the social media. So who are some of the people that stick out to you, regardless of, your favorite people that you follow and have helped?
Yeah, sure. So, I love what Melissa Kimball has done with Black creatives. She's really provided so much value and helped to so many people. because of what you did. She supports a number of people like us who, are figuring out entrepreneurism or figuring out their creative journey. And she helps them and gives them a kind of a hub to find like-minded people. So she has a lot of Twitter chats where she asks some important questions to people who are already doing well in certain areas, and helps other people to learn from what they might talk about. So I like her a lot. There's a bunch of people who do great work on social media, but I think it's more about just kind of figuring out what appeals to you, and what kind of area you want to get into.
Definitely. So this all leads to us discussing, that social currency, but also that, that background. So speaking of, affiliates and partnerships and things like that, when it comes to no specific platforms, but how mindful should people be of that, and also leverage those relationships to monetize their following? Because you mentioned there are some people that have this following and don't know what to do with it.
Right. So you're asking how to monetize, or?
Yeah. So leveraging affiliates, partnerships, etc. Uh-huh. So monetizing that way first.
Mm-hmm. I think it comes down to, one, being really clear about the value you provide, and the audience you've built. Like, if you want to establish a partnership on social media, it's going to be based on the connection you have with your audience, no matter what size it is. So, being aware of the audience you attract, and, the engagement that comes from that, I think is a big thing. And from there, just starting to observe and figure out, how does this work in my specific industry, in my field, in my area of interest. So you start to do the research and, figure out who the gatekeepers are, the people who have, the power to say yes or no to a partnership. Because it's rarely the people who, are the most well known. It's typically somebody who's, more so corporate and, less out there in a certain way. So you want to start to do your research and build relationships first. You want to be able to ask somebody, after you kind of talk to them, like, hey, I'd love to hear more about how I can help, and what I can do. And, leading with that approach, leading with the, what can I do to help you approach, will get a lot more of an extensive response on average than, oh, hey, I'd love to get paid to do this. You want to take time to establish the relationship and, figure out where they are, figure out what they do, take time to ask them how their day is, and just, be empathetic and see if they need something from somebody like you. Maybe you can fill that hole and establish that relationship, and maybe they'll think of you if there's a, some sort of paid thing in the future. So, definitely being patient and establishing relationships is a huge thing. And also just continuing to shoot your shot in different ways, to be proactive and be consistent with reaching out to the people who might be able to help you, people might be able to put you on, and, not being afraid to say, like, hey, I do bring this to the table. This is what I do, and like in a very specific way.
I like that. Be empathetic. And it's always, I like that you mentioned even the fact of building those relationships, because I think that that's something that people don't kind of do enough of, and just go in for the ask. So, yeah,
absolutely.
And, for example, so I want to kind of play an example part. This company that sells ebooks. Mm-hmm. What are some of the, and that's my platform is educational based, or, that's what we do, courses, ebooks. And what are some of the platforms that I should target or focus more on instead? And the fact that you mentioned social first, so integrating that aspect of it, like what should I focus on? What platform?
Probably you want to look at the age group, the demographic you want to reach. You want to figure out that and figure out where they are, and you want to see, where you already are established at, because you might already be just casually on Facebook or Instagram just kicking it, so you want to make sure that you get a feel for where you are, where your target audience is, and be able to kind of make plays based on that. There's really no generic, kind of answer. It's always, you got to be able to look at your situation and, see what's best for you at this moment in the present. And then maybe, where do you want to expand to in the future?
And even the fact you mentioned going back to the people who have these larger followings, not knowing what to do, and based in your experience, how do you kind of determine, I'm this influencer, I don't know what to charge or even how to start to begin to ask or understand my worth? How do people go about, what should I charge? Who should I reach out to first?
Well, typically I do my best to, it's always kind of it's a game, when you get to a point where somebody reaches out for paid collaboration, I do my best to always ask, what's your budget before they can ask me what my rate is. Cause, half the time I've had people, I've asked that question and the number that I had in mind to ask was like way lower than what they actually had to give, so
wow.
definitely. There is a lot of money being put into influencer marketing and non-traditional marketing. So, not being scared to shoot for bigger numbers. And then, when it comes down to it, when you give people your price, if somebody's willing to pay for what you do, they're not going to be off put by a price that's higher than what they expect. If you say, I can do these 3 posts for $2,000. The big thing is, one, being comfortable with that. And 2, understanding, I can come to somebody and say, oh, well, I'm excited to work with you. I love the company. This really fits into what I'm doing already. I think that given my area of expertise, my following of this many people, and, whatever else, that a rate of 2,000 would be appropriate for this campaign. I'm confident we can find a way to work some things out. So that's kind of saying, this is where I am. This is why this number is appropriate. I'm sure we can figure something out. So, you put your number out there and you make it clear that this is what I think is appropriate. I'm open to counter offers, so you kind of do leave the space where if that is too high for their budget, you can still find a way to meet somebody somewhere in the middle.
Yes, examples. I like that. I'm writing notes like, oh, yes, that's good.
Yeah.
And even a lot of the things, I guess it's different now, but also people doing, what would you recommend exactly for someone who's starting out, possibly like, reaching out to someone and do you even recommend free advertising for someone?
Like doing a free campaign for somebody?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it depends, what you're willing to do. I'll still do, at times, I'll do a free shoot or something for a company if I just really want the product. Like if you're getting like, some nice, like some handmade, custom boots or something, or you love Nike, or, maybe you want a month's worth of free food or whatever else. If it's something you want anyways, and you want to build a long-term relationship, then, that could be a good thing. Because part of it too is like, maybe you just want to establish the relationship. Maybe you want to say, my rate is typically this. I'm excited to build a relationship with you and start to, talk about these products and, bring your brand to my audience. And I think a higher rate would be appropriate, but I'd love to, show you what I can do. Get this first campaign out there, if you see fit, and as you get busier, as you get a bigger following, as more opportunities open up, that might change, probably will change, but there's no hard and fast, don't do it for free. But if you don't like the company, definitely don't do it. Well, if you don't like the company, don't do it, period. But if you're kind of like, I don't really have to wear these clothes, I don't really have a strong desire to build this company long term, and they don't have any money, then it's kind of like, I'm kind of good, It has to make sense for whatever your goals are.
Yes. And kind of twisting it from the company's perspective, you've been able to work with some brands, top brands, but kind of for the entrepreneurs out there who are looking at influencers to market their product, approaching them properly and making sure they have their ducks in a row. What advice would you give to that?
I would say, again, like for everything, like leading with empathy. So just being realistic, and being upfront. I think one thing that is kind of a pet peeve is like, don't, if you are not going to pay somebody, like make that clear up front, don't try to frame something where, you want to send somebody a shirt, send them a shirt. It's all love. It's appreciated. But don't be like, oh, exclusive opportunity, high level collaboration. Like don't not always call a spade a spade. That's huge. And the transparency goes a long way. So if you kind of come, you give me the opportunity to see what this deal is going to be up front, it makes it that much easier to, say yes or say no politely, but I appreciate the opportunity, just being real about what you're actually offering. And, giving people an easy thing to execute, not making what your ask is like super difficult, like if you have a low budget or no budget, like don't ask somebody to make a 10-minute documentary about your t-shirt,
That's a word. All good. Yeah, definitely. So speaking, you've given some great advice. I've taken away a lot. Just speaking on your experience a little more. So you've worked with some great companies, Red Bull, TIDAL, McDonalds, and you've been featured in some very prominent magazines and publications. So what was it like for you to work with those higher level businesses, but also what were some of the things that you were able to do working with those campaigns?
Well, I appreciated the opportunity, and the bigger companies, a lot of those deals came through Shade, my influencer agency. So they kind of came back and they're like, yeah, we're going to give you this much for a campaign. I was like, yo, like for Instagram posts? Like when I was first kind of like getting on board bigger company, I was kind of like, well, damn, I'm getting like this much for a couple of Instagram posts. It's just kind of fire. So that was an awesome opportunity. And it kind of made me realize how much the social capital or, the skill set that I've built is actually worth, because, well-researched companies are like, yeah, we think you're worth this much. And we'll agree to that. So it was pretty gratifying. Also the level of scrutiny and attention to detail that is required to work with a bigger brand, it can't be overstated. So I think a lot of people think like, oh, this dude got a bunch of followers and now he just gets paid to do whatever he wants on social media, which is not the case. There will be instances where, like, IG stories, like the
yes,
like there'll be cases where a single IG story post has to get approved by 3 different people, as part of this campaign. So, you're getting paid to fulfill the specifics of what they want. So that's important to keep in mind. It's important to be patient and to be flexible and to, express your creative views, but not to be so stubborn that you are unwilling to accommodate, unwilling to gracefully accommodate the recommended changes the company wants. So that's important to remember. You're getting paid to fulfill the contract in the way they want you to fulfill it. So yeah, you want to be expressive and do things your way, but there is a requirement for compromise. So that's something to remember. I think that one of my coolest experiences might have been with Delta Hotels, which is part of Marriott. I ended up going to Toronto in December to look at one of their new hotels and explore the city of Toronto. And I was capturing content there, but it's a beautiful city. I had a really, really, really good experience there. And I was treated well, and I met some great people.
I want to go there.
You got to go. It's a beautiful city. It's kind of like it almost feels kind of New Yorkish in certain areas, just a lot smaller and a lot more Drake, which I didn't think was possible.
You said Drake?
Yeah, there was like more Drake. They're like Drake crazy. It's his hometown. So,
Oh, Drake, Tory Lanez, it's all of that. Yeah.
Nah, just Drake.
Oh, okay. You're going to play Tory Lanez. Okay.
Nah, he's the heavy hitter. He's the main man. So he gets a lot of play.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I think I definitely want to kind of dive into that just a little bit more. So when you spoke about respectfully and all of those things, do you feel like in the process, because I know that you haven't officially embraced the concept of being an influencer, so do you feel like in some ways that there's a drawback on being authentic or, being your full self because you may not get these brand deals or such?
As far as I'm concerned, there's no drawbacks. I'm never not gonna be me. And I think that I think you can be yourself and still get the deals. It's just a matter of knowing what parts of you want to keep in the group chat, or you want to text to your homies or all that stuff. And what part, you feel cool bringing on to social media. I think is important to differentiate, but I think you can definitely be yourself. Just don't be an asshole. Don't. Yeah.
Some people like those people. I'm just saying.
Yeah, just keeping the balance in mind.
Right, definitely. And I'll be honest and say I'm not too familiar with the influencer agency and how that kind of works. So what is that like, that process for those who are looking to go use your advice and then go into that space?
Influencer agencies are your advocates. They are your biggest advocates. So Shade is the name of my agency. It's run by Jacques and Dave Sebastian. They're a fantastic, dynamic duo. And essentially they and their team, they go to different companies and they try to get us deals. They say we have these 3 people, they have audiences kind of within these specific areas, and, they negotiate the prices and make the connections, and they kind of, push to get us the deals that are fitting of our following and our skill set. And what was I going to say? They operate in a way that they get a portion of, the money the agency gives to us. So they get paid when we get paid, which is really incredible for people. We're all figuring out entrepreneurism, so we don't all have a lot of cash flow. So it's great to have an agency behind you that can get you more opportunities, that is incentivized to find you those deals because they get paid when you get paid. It's not like you're paying them a monthly stipend.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And I didn't ask. So how did you grow your following to such? What are some of the ways that you grew your own following?
So I've been active on social media. I've been on Twitter and Instagram. I started really kind of looking to build my following back in 2010. So it's been almost a decade now. I just kind of really think about, what will start conversations, what will help people, what will resonate with people, what will make people laugh. Just thinking about the value you provide, I think is huge. And, paying attention to the impression you make, studying other people and seeing what works for them, seeing how it can apply to, what you do, and being supportive of the people who you follow and the people you're following. Taking the time to talk to people, even if you don't follow them, if they tweet you, say thanks or carry the conversation on. Don't be too cool for anything. Staying up to date on trends is pretty important because, you want to find topics that people want to talk about. You want to be able to offer your perspective on those different topics. So, a number of different things. I think just being able to find, your tribe or whatever you want to call it, find the people that you actually enjoy connecting with. Again, so it can be social media, like not business media, and, giving people a reason to care about what you say.
Good, good, good. So let's talk about this book.
Yeah.
Keep It 100, a series of daily affirmations for millennials who are tired of being called millennials. Let's talk
Absolutely.
about it.
Where do you want me to start?
So what's the inspiration behind it? And at first why?
For sure. Well, I've been writing for half my life. I think I've been writing for a very long time, and an article is great. A blog post is fantastic, but you want some more longevity, and you want to be able to turn your skill set into something that can help you go to the next level. And author sounds a lot different than blogger or social media or whatever. So I kind of wanted to add that to my repertoire. And if I'm being honest, I was always kind of thinking about writing a book when I was a kid. I just never did it. I used to when I was 8 or 9, or probably younger, actually, we had the MS-DOS computer. I'm not sure how old you are, but, it was way before Windows or anything. It's just a blue screen. And I would try to type things. And, I ended up going online and copying random things. And I was yeah, I got a book. I just wanted to have the words down. So I've always kind of been drawn to reading and subsequently writing. And I wanted to be able to create something that would last, that could help people and kind of show people who I am on a bigger scale. So Keep It 100 is, again, it's affirmations, but it's way less flowery, way more blunt. It's very vulnerable. It's very humorous and goofy. If you follow me on any social media platform, I kind of go back and forth between, talking about personal things I'm overcoming and, just being goofy and saying things that make me laugh. It's if you don't laugh, I'm going to laugh anyways. So I think the book is kind of a good balance of those two things. So the concept, the reason it's called Keep It 100 is that, well, first of all, it's about authenticity. The phrase, of course, keep it 100 is to stay true, to be authentic. Secondly, the book actually has 100 affirmations. I took 100 different, encouraging phrases, a number of which actually I first tweeted out or put on Instagram. They got popular on social media. So I actually kind of I listened to my audience, this connected, this resonated. And I took that and I wrote 100 words to add more context to each of those 100 affirmations. So, I think it's a book that's easy to digest because, it's hard to get people to focus in this day and age on anything that's longer than a paragraph because we're all scrolling nonstop. So, I made it, concise to the point. If you want to read it all in one day, you can. If you want to read, one page per day, maybe in the morning to kind of get you going, you can do that too. So, yeah, that's kind of the concept of the whole thing. Very excited to put it out. And a cool story about it, actually, is that my publisher, her name is Audrey Ori. She runs a publishing house based in Chicago called 13th and Joan. She actually discovered me through Instagram, through what I was writing and, kind of putting out there in my captions. I've been known to, have some pretty in-depth and detailed and goofy captions sometimes. And she actually reached out and said, if you ever have any plans to put a book out, I'd love to work with you as a publisher. So that's how that actually started. But yeah, it's been in the works for over a year and it's going to be out very, very soon. So I'm really excited for it. I'm very proud of how it turned out. I was very persistent throughout the process in regards to making sure it was true to the vision that I had for it, that I think it'll help who I want it to help, and that it'll just it'll be indicative of who I am. It's not going to be anybody else's words or thoughts. taking precedence. So very excited for the book.
Amazing. Congratulations. That's, since a child and now it coming to life. That's amazing. So congrats.
Thank you.
And you mentioned it's a series of affirmations. So what is one of the things that stood out in the book that you would give us a sneak peek of?
Don't have it in front of me right now. I think that it's really just indicative of the personality that I bring to the table on social media.
Amazing. And it's set to release for the summer, correct?
It's going to release at some point before the fourth quarter.
Gotcha. Well, we can't wait to check it out. And what are some other things that you have going on, or some ways that people can continue to support you and contact you if they wish and follow?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm on probably every social media platform at Michell C. Clark. So MichellClark. And you can probably find me talking about goofy things on all those platforms, as well as, of course, marketing, social media, and probably NBA basketball. You can also, if you want to download my free ebook on social media marketing, it's a 33-page book with a lot of, worksheets and thoughts and premises on, again, how you can win at social media long term. So you can actually download that book at MichellClark.com for free. And it will subscribe you to my email list where I kind of put out, my personal updates, some stories here and there. And I publish an article and a playlist every 2 weeks. So you can stay in touch with me there. Also at MichellClark, MichellClark.com.
Amazing. And Michell, with all the wonderful things you're doing and continue to do in your journey, what advice would you give your 23-year-old self?
Aim higher. Aim higher. Like the things you really want to do are very much so doable. You just got to put in the effort every day and believe you can actually do it. So, whatever your true passions are, whatever you see yourself doing in 10 years, like shoot for that. And, don't spend time doing things that you don't believe you want to be part of your future. If they're not paying your bills, they're not building your dreams, why stress it?
That's a quote right there. So, Michell, thank you so much for being on the Black to Business podcast and just giving us all of the knowledge and just sharing your story and journey in an authentic way. So thank you for being on the podcast.
For sure. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And that is a wrap.
As always, thanks so much for listening, family. For complete show notes from this episode, visit blacktobusiness.com/EP32-Michell Clark. Again, EP32-Michell Clark. It is very important for us to take the resources that are mentioned in this episode to propel our businesses. We hope that you continue to push forward on your social media platforms and also use that to leverage and make money from it. So until next time.